Hello, 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 friends, and welcome back to another installment of Book Reviews. Today, we're talking about In the Name of the Father. It's part of the Father series by Morticia Knight. I read this book again when I was on the trip in March for a convention, so I enjoyed it. I definitely, March? No, April. April for the convention. I got the month wrong last time. Anyway, so I read this a couple months ago. It's a fairly short read. I think it's about under 200 pages or so. So we'll start in with the warnings as I normally start with them. This one, we do have a little bit nothing new that I wrote down, but there's spoilers ahead for the story. If you want to read this ahead of time, I will recommend it. If you're looking for something short and a little bit fluffy with a little bit of angst, not too much, but just a little bit of angst, I will probably bash Christianity a little bit in this just because, that's what the book is kind of about. But before I get too much into all that, let's start with the characters. We have Seth and Malcolm. Seth is a 23-year-old adult who has left his family and his church because he is gay. He came out to a very conservative family, and that did not go over well. So he's now living on his own in a not great part of town, and he's kind of struggling. He has issues with religion now that he is out and realizes that he is who he is and can't coincide or reconcile, I guess I should say, the two parts of him, the part that believes in religion and Christianity and the part that believes that he's okay for being gay, The self-loathing is obviously strong in this one because of that, and, he thinks he's wrong and he's doomed and that no two men can have a happy relationship with one another. They're like doomed to failure and all that kind of stuff. He does feel inadequate once he gets to know Malcolm because he's so inexperienced compared to this older man. And speaking of Malcolm, he's daddy as fuck. He lost his last boy after a 10-year relationship, not because they split up, because death unfortunately took the boy. He spent his time avoiding friends and clubs that remind him of their shared past, so he's been kind of a loner recently, focusing on his job as a vineyard owner and stuff like that. And one night at a club, he meets a frightened young man, Seth, who is running into trouble with some men who want to do not so great things to Seth. And obviously, he can tell he's running away from himself and struggling with kind of who he is. And there's a couple side characters. There's, a pastor who Malcolm introduced Seth to, who can kind of open his mind up, Pastor Callum. And then there's two of Malcolm's friends, Nate, Adam, as well, and Tina, Nate's sub. So there's a couple of extra characters, but they're not really integral to the plot. I mean, Malcolm does talk to Nate quite often, but it's, I don't have much to say other than the fact Nate's a dom, so I didn't warrant a whole nother scene or a slide for this. But as far as the story goes, Seth, starting off, has run away from his family, his church, and is struggling to make it on his own as a single adult. As he visits a bar to get out of the rain and kind of, relax a little bit, he's accosted by a group of men who want Seth to hang out with him and do more than just hang out. They talk about, railing him and basically running a train on his ass. And I'm like, wish that were me. But is rescued by Malcolm after, Seth asks for them to stop, and they don't stop. Seth is then taken to Malcolm's house and kind of like gets a time to recoup. There's some other plot, Seth gives up his apartment, but he still has his job, and then Seth loses his job. So Seth is now coming to learn how to rely on Malcolm for a lot, and he feels inadequate in that, and he feels like he shouldn't be taking advantage of Malcolm's generosity. And this is kind of where Malcolm introduces Seth into the lifestyle of being a boy to a daddy, as like sugar daddy kind of situation. Slowly at first, learning that the young man will barely accept much due to his belief that, he is wrong and evil for being gay and into men. Seth does agree to visit a church, but he's afraid of going by himself because last time he was there by himself, he was taken and then, sent to a conversion camp, conversion therapy and stuff like that, which didn't end up working, but, he's afraid that he's going to be just duped into this and being like sent back home and all this kind of bad stuff. And then, he's trying to reconcile his issues with his religious beliefs, not issues, but like his differences between what he believes religiously and, his own sexuality. What does that mean and what does that look like? So there's lots of unpacking of toxic religious beliefs here, but there's a happily ever after ender. Okay, there's a happily ever after, Ryan, that'll rot your teeth out. And I enjoyed this. It's sweet. It's nice. Fuck the church, but as you know, fuck a lot of things. So, yeah. Moving on to some of the tropes as we have here. It's time to let the tropes go, let the past be the past. There's obviously the religious extremism that's presented throughout Seth's story here. Seth has been through conversion therapy to quote-unquote cure him of his homosexuality and his heavily skewed beliefs as a result of what does being gay mean? Is being gay okay? And stuff like that, which I think is, for what this book kind of presents, is a solid kind of through line that Malcolm gets to help not fix, because there's still some times even at the end where Seth feels like he is doing something wrong or inadequate because he is quote unquote innocent or naive or not as experienced, and just feels like there's a lot relying on Malcolm and stuff like that. And then while with Malcolm, those beliefs are dismantled slowly and are proven to be outright lies. Seth is a good person. Seth is a caring and loving person. He's capable of love, capable of joy. He's not a sinner because he is gay. He's not, doomed to damnation and anything like that. And I like that kind of slow burn, if you will, of fixing the trauma that is brought on by religion at times. And then there's obviously the sugar daddy dynamics. Malcolm is basically a sugar daddy, if you will. He wants nothing more than to make sure Seth is okay, emotionally, spiritually, financially, physically, But he's definitely afraid of overstepping his boundaries in the beginning, as they aren't traditionally in that typical daddy-boy dynamic in that respect. It's a very equivalent in my mind to like a dom sub, where they haven't fully discussed what they were doing in terms of their limits or anything like that. But for someone like Seth, who has not been experiencing anything, asking what somebody's limits are is kind of just asking like, well, do you even know what that is? And it's a hard question to ask. And this book, while short, it's like I said, it's under 200 pages. It's presented in a very slow, kind of evolving way, from laying out Malcolm's lap for comfort to full-on pampering later, while maintaining a hint of BDSM spice. There's a cock cage that gets brought out, and I'm a big fan. So I did enjoy this. Overall, as you kind of tell, I enjoyed this book for what it was. So let's go into some rankings. We'll touch on the plot, the characters, the writing style, the spicy scenes, and just overall, how did I jive with this? So overall, I think the plot is solid. Again, it's short, not in a bad way. There's not a lot of room other than their development between Seth and Malcolm. Like I said, there's not a lot of character growth in anyone else. We get hints of Nate and Tina's relationship. We get hints of Pastor Callum and stuff like that. But it's really focused on Seth and Malcolm, which I'm okay with. I do like the plot because it's a very, like I said, slow burn, but not excruciatingly slow. Things move at a little bit of a brisk pace, but there's a lot of hesitation on both Malcolm's end and Seth's end that does get resolved and kind of get naturally brought up and worked through. But it's not like they met and then they start fucking. It's more like they met and then they start falling for each other and then they start fucking. I don't think they actually fuck until the end of the book, which is honestly surprising for me, which is why I'm going to rank something a little bit higher than I think I should. But going on to the characters, I still think it's a solid book. The characters of Seth and Malcolm, I think, are great. I like them. I like how Seth is portrayed because I think that's very accurate, at least to my own personal interactions with the church growing up as a closeted gay teen and gay kid, where I was reinforced that you will be sent to conversion therapy if you continue to act like you're a gay. And I'm like, bet. I was never sent, but that threat still impacted me, So I understand where Seth is coming from, and God, if I can get a sugar daddy like Malcolm, God, my life would be sorted. The writing style was nice. It's it's short. Not saying the writing style I predicate on how long or good the book is. It's short. The writing style is fine. I had nothing where I was like, what's going on here? What are we talking about? Which is, I think, indicative of Morticia Knight's ability as an author, because I never had that. There's some books, looking at Psychopath Daddy and Convict Daddy, where I'm like, what the fuck is going on in this day? But now I'm like, this one, I'm like, no, this is great. I know what's going on. There's just not something I really like. There's not a lot of description in places. There's description on characters and feelings and moods, and I get that. But rooms and stuff, I like feeling like I'm inside a world, But for spicy scenes, and I'm surprised I gave this a 4-star, there's a lot of discussion on toys and sexuality and cock cages and what does being a boy mean to Malcolm? What does it look like for Seth, who's new to this? I don't think, like I said, I don't think they fuck until the end, which is 170-ish pages or so into the book. So kudos for me for ranking this high. But I think the dynamic of a daddy and a boy in terms of like the sugar daddy and their boy, if you will, I think is why I ranked it so high, is because it's the dynamic that I enjoy reading about. The not will they, won't they, it's the we will do this when you're ready, of course, but the healing nature of it, I think the intimacy was there, and that's what I'm really looking for. Is sex can be great. I can read a sex scene and feel nothing. But if there's intimacy, like there is in this book, I think I'll rank it higher. So overall, I give this a solid 4 stars. It's an enjoyable read. It's a short one. Not bad because it's short by any stretch of the imagination. I highly enjoyed this one. And if you have any trouble with, religion or religious, kind of backgrounds or anything like that, may or may not be for you, depending. For me, I loved it because it just kind of not validated me as a human, but validated my experience that like I am still good. At the end of the day, I'm not a horrible human being because I decided to be gay. Not decided, but because I came out as gay, So yeah, let's go through some recommendations, which this one is a little bit harder for me because I haven't read anything that specifically dealt with religion per se, but it also kind of teeters on like the BDSM daddy aspect, a lot. So I decided to go leaning into that side because I haven't read much about religion in any other book besides technically Where the Devil Says Goodnight. But if I recommend that again, I'm pretty sure y'all are going to be like furious at me because it's the one book I won't shut up about. But moving on to it, if you want more of a daddy kind of dynamic where it's an older man and a younger male, like younger by like in the 20s, Trained by the Boss it's straight to gay, if you will. I say if you will. I think it's really just more like straight to bi, if you will. But straight to gay sells books, so it's what we call it. But it's by Charlotte Storm. It's definitely more of a BDSM story for sure. But I like the age dynamic. I also think it's a little leaning towards the sugar daddy, if you will, as there's like a workplace romance, and it's trained by the boss. He gets a job, he falls for the boss. It's that kind of stuff. If you're looking into more like heavier BDSM, less age gap per se, I would recommend Obedience, the Submission Book 1 by Jason Collins. It takes place in Alaska, where a researcher is there and falls for a like lumberjack kind of like forest ranger-y guy, and they get stranded together in the research cabin, if you will. And this is the will they won't they kind of get together, where their attraction is undeniable for each other, but they have the hesitancy to do anything because one's not going to be there for a while, and the other one's kind of guarded and doesn't want to scare the other one off with his dom tendencies. So overall, both were great reads in my opinion. I would highly recommend either of them. As far as this kind of religious topic, if I find a new one, I might throw it at the end here. But I haven't found one that dealt with religion in the same way that this one is, which by the title of it, In the Name of the Father, I thought would have been more about a priest, if you will. But if you do want some more religion in your gay romance, I would definitely suggest, and I know you guys are expecting it, Where the Devil Says Goodnight by K.A. American. It's the best, in my opinion. It's the book that broke me, and I cannot recommend it enough. So I can't do this without support from you guys, or I can do this without support from you guys, but having your guys' support means the world to me, which is why I want to say thank you, a big shout out to Potato Kingdom on Twitch for supporting me and doing what I do, which is talking about gay shit. So if you guys haven't followed Potato Kingdom on Twitch, I know it's not linked here, but that is their handle that they are supporting me with on Twitch and stuff. Twitch, yes. So I definitely suggest following them. They play Kingdom Hearts. They're a great gamer. They also have great stories, better stories than I could probably ever tell. So go follow them out. And I also know that they're doing more kind of animated videos on YouTube as well. And I'll see if I can drop them their bio or link down in my description. So if you want to go check them out as well, you should definitely do that. We love friends supporting friends in these gay endeavors, And then if you do want to support me or follow me, I am on Twitch most nights, 7 nights a week, playing different games at twitch.tv/SharadaSky. For any updates in real time or just to see what I'm up to, you can always follow me on Twitter. It is full of gay shit, so I just warn you there. If it's not something you're a cup of tea, just don't bother. And then if you do want to support me, you don't have to. I will always try and do these as often as I can, but you can if you want to. I have a Patreon page at patreon.com/SharadaSky. You can get things like exclusive videos, exclusive access to videos before other people. You get exclusive polls that you can tell me basically what books do you want me to read out of the books that I suggest, or lists and stuff like that. And you guys can always just, reach out to me in any way, shape, or form on either Twitch or Twitter. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day ahead of you. Enjoy your weekend, friends. And I'll see you next week as we touch on another gay book. Have a good one.